Good morning, media. My name is John Chitenga, representing Teenz Media TV. I trust that you are all well. Today we are seated here at Pilesa Advocacy to South Africa with obviously our biggest activist in the country, Ms. Lucinda Evans. And we will just have a quick interview with Ms. Lucinda. We would just like to know more about Ms. Lucinda's life, where Ms. Lucinda comes from, how Ms. Lucinda made it, and how she became such a successful activist that, everyone looks up to. So without, further ado, I would then like to move over to Ms. Lucinda to quickly introduce herself to us so that we may know Ms. Lucinda and,
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Lucinda Evans, and I am a human rights defender. And I was born in District 6, but I didn't grow up in District 6 because we got evicted when I was just very young, and we were thrown in Lavender Hill, where you don't see the lavender, you don't smell the lavender, and we cannot grow lavender because our people are still living in the apartheid special units that was built to last for, I think, 20 years. But we have people staying in those apartheid style rental housing for over 53 years. In fact, last year we had this beautiful experience with the city of Cape Town, who evicted my father from his family home after he lived 54 years of his life in that space. And as cruel as what it sounds, this is the modus operandi of how the city of Cape Town works, and it says the city works for you. So part of what I do is I defend the rights of a very vulnerable population. I mean, older persons is part of it too, but I work in the gender-based violence and child protection space.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, for introducing yourself, because I'm pretty sure everyone was waiting to hear from ma'am and what ma'am do. So to move on, I would then like to ask ma'am, how is it having to deal with such problems? Like ma'am said, you got evicted and then sent into Lavendale, and then people have this concept of Lavendale is like a very violent place where there's gang violence and things like that. So how do ma'am have to deal with these things on a daily basis? How do ma'am deal with them?
I think in all areas over the world there are pockets of dangerous areas. Not the entire Lavender Hill is dangerous. I grew up in the Lavender Hill, and yes, we were evicted. We were thrown into these apartheid style homes, but there were already people living what is now known as Vrygrond and Capricorn. So there were already people there, and these people were eligible for the housing. And of course, as the government have orchestrated, the people then, what we call the bush, before it was Seawings and Hillview, it was just bush. And people were living there. And it was well orchestrated that from the prime land of District 6 and Constantia, and now what is known as Bishop's Court and Simonstown, all these people, the colored community, were thrown onto the Cape Flats. But for us in particular, it also brought another violence. So the people that were living what was known as Old Vrygrond or the bush, they then had conflict with people in the flats because they were eligible, the original people that were supposed to be moved into these flats. And I grew up as a child where we were told, you don't mix with those people, the black people. Back in the day, they used the K word. They will kill you. They will cook you and they'll put you in a pot. And so as the defiant young child and curious as what I was, I wanted to go meet the people that were going to kill me and cook me. And I actually made a friend with a child that lives in Vrygrond. And needless to say, when my grandmother found out, she wasn't very happy at all. And back in the day, discipline was violent. So she gave me a hiding. And after I recovered from the hiding and waited for it to simmer down, I went back there. And my life was about serving people which were marginalized. So of course I advocated for vrygrond. But before that process even happened, because of the violence, my grandfather started what was known as the peacemakers. So the peacemakers were all the men and women. They wore yellow jackets. And then the men that were working day shift would be, and it's now known as neighborhood watchers. They would patrol and they would watch and they would take care of the families. And the night shift men, during the day, they would make sure we go to school. So I went to school. First school was the Moravian school, which is still standing there.
Yes, the
Christian
Afrikaans
David
school.
Yeah, so I attended that school. And they walked with us. And the school also had a morning school and an afternoon school. And this was the protection for the people, the Cape people that was going to kill us. But the actual enemy was the apartheid government. Because that time you couldn't be outside after 6 p.m. And it was violent. And my grandparents were these amazing people. Grandfather was very quiet, but he was the president of the peacemakers. Very quiet man. My grandmother, she was as big as life. Like mama was bigger. She's big. She was big mama, like we would call big mama. She was as big as life, but she had this amazing draw of people to her. So everybody knew in that whole 6 blocks of flats, if anything goes wrong, you go to number 44. So that was our number where we stayed, 44 Bottom House. And I grew up in a space of an omgee oma, so it was a caring granny, and she delivered women's babies that didn't even book for pregnancy. When somebody was shot by that time the safety police, because we were the corner house, people would run into the house and she would bandage and patch them. And I grew up, and our house was also the house where the women met. So as a youngster, only child, I sat in those circles of women and conversation. And yet, not to know, fast forward, that what was already planted there was me growing up with leading and protecting. So my grandmother, Kathleen du Plessis, she was the first human rights defender in my life, because she defended people and protected people and cooked. She cooked. Yeah, this thing with Christmas. I'm also very panicky today. It's Christmas Eve. So I've grown up in a home that we just don't cook for ourselves. If the 5 of us were living together, we don't cook for 5 people. You cook for 5 more people, because she always used to say, we don't know who's going to come knock on our door. And even if they come for whatever, you offer them something to eat. So I grew up also with this, and the cooking in the organization also, that I just don't cook for our beneficiaries, because somebody might come in at the gate. And I grew up in a Lavender Hill where children were free. We played outside. We played outside till late with adults watching us. Genders played together, boys and girls. And we had traditional games, your skalulus, your 3 blikkies, your 3 stokkies, your marbles, kite flying. This time of the year, all the men would make kites for us, bamboo kites. They would go to vrygrond, we'll get bamboo, and they'll make bamboo kites. But the Lavender Hill, which is now depicted, and those elements of beautiful and authenticness and community is still in Lavender Hill. What has been populated and what has been, social media sometimes is such an ugly thing. What has been depicted is it's a community where nothing beautiful can ever come. That's why this banner says bring lavender back to the hills. Because within the framework of growing up and working still in Lavender Hill, that nobody sees actually the lavender for the hills. And these beautiful people, professional people, lawyers, doctors, sportsmen, sportswomen, that came from Lavender Hill. So working in an area which is now pockets of violence, there are huge pockets of excellence. I'm a child of Lavendale. I'm a product of, I believe, and I still believe that there are lavender for the hills. I still believe that. That kept me going in dark days when nobody believed that a Khoisan woman, also a woman, would be able to do this. When my back was on against the wall, and the only thing which I still have, which is very fundamental for me, is my God and my faith, and my belief that we all deserve lavender for the hills. And so if you look at lavender as the flower, the elements of that flower, it brings calmness, it brings peace. It's this beautiful purple color. People use it in teas, they use it in oils, they use it in food. And this is the lavender that we strive still for, the peace and the calm and the healing elements that the plant also brings through the work back at the community.
Okay, ma'am. So, like, ma'am have mentioned a lot of things, and what I'm getting from what ma'am has mentioned is that ma'am says that ma'am actually got inspiration or got inspired by what the grandparents was doing within the community, and then ma'am decided not to just stop there, but to build on, so that ma'am can also like help other young people or other women and generations to come, which is also a really, really good thing. And I can testify, through the work ma'am has done, we see that ma'am has really came from far, and ma'am has accomplished many things because you've resolved a lot of cases, and a lot of things is going on. But then I would also like to ask ma'am, like, what advice can like ma'am give to a younger person who is maybe trying to find themselves, out there, because ma'am also mentioned that it was just your faith that kept you going and praying to God. But then there are also other young people out there who have lost faith and who don't even know their worth, or who don't even know what their gifts are. So like, my question to ma'am would then be like, how can ma'am like, encourage those young ones out there on how they can like do better in life, and how they can maybe become where ma'am is?
You see, Jean, it's not something that my grandparents did and then I took over.
Okay.
I didn't even know what my gifts were until I met with something terrible, to say it, before it ignited. So I drove to the Eastern Cape, and that time flying wasn't really the thing. It was too expensive, and only white people flew. So I drove from Cape Town, and I needed to go to a place called Port St. John's. And in my young, enthusiastic mind, I thought Port St. John's is just around the corner. Didn't know it was almost an 18-hour drive. And I had music, my music, knickknacks, chips. I still love knickknacks, chips. I had 3 coffees. And I got to a bridge called the Umzi-Vubu River, and I was sick. I just stopped on the bridge, and there were women selling mealies, and I opened the door, I just vomited. And I was so weak, because I didn't pay attention to, I just need to get to this place. I got my music, I got my knickknacks, I got my coffee. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't drive any further. I was just too sick. Not knowing I'm actually just 5 kilometers from my destination. But that was my encounter with my destiny. I was completely vulnerable. I didn't speak the language. I don't speak isiXhosa. There was these women, and they came to me, and I bought a millie. So just to feel safe, I bought a millie. I don't eat millies. I eat millies from that time, but before that I didn't eat millies. And then they saw I was sick because I was just laying in the car. I couldn't drive. And these women took upon themselves to sit outside of my car, and they protected me. And somehow in the middle of the night, I fell asleep. And somehow in the middle of the night, I felt wet. I was so shocked. I woke up in the car, and I'm still in the car, and she just said, Tula, Tula. And I understood what she meant. and tried to drink. So I was drinking some herbs, water mixed with herbs. And I fell asleep again. And when I woke up the next morning, believe you me, I woke up 9 o'clock next morning. The one was sleeping on the back seat and the other one was sitting up straight next to me. And there was a blanket over me. And I was so shocked. I have women in the car. For a few minutes I didn't know. And between not understanding each other, the word Pilisa came out. And I remembered the word because she told me, you healed now. And then she couldn't figure out where I was going. I couldn't figure out. And then they got out and we said bye. And I gave them money and they didn't want to take the money. I looked on the map book. That time there was no GPS on the map book. And I'm 5 kilometers from Port St. John's. So I drive to Port St. John's and everybody is worried because I already had to arrive 2 o'clock the previous day. So this incident happened 2 o'clock. And I arrived there 10 o'clock. And they were looking for me and calling me. My phone was flat as well. But at the accommodation, like I asked this woman, what does Pilisa mean? And she says healing. I'm like, oh, she said I'm healed. And they asked me what happened. I'm like, I got sick. And I was on the bridge. And they said, oh, you nuts. It's not safe. You're a woman. You have a Cape Town car. You have this big car. And this word Pilisa stayed in my head 5 days. I did what I needed to do. And then I knew Advocacy was women. And I drove back and I asked the people at the accommodation to drive me because I needed an interpreter. And I found these ladies there again. And that time 1,000 rand was a lot, and that was my money for the other accommodation. And I took the 1,000 rand and I gave it to them, and they didn't want to take it. So I said to my interpreter, asked them what they want. And they said maize and beans and salmon. Like, we're driving back to Port St. John's. And I went to go buy 1,000 rand of groceries. The car was packed. I needed to do 2 more trips back to town and back.
Sure.
We left it there. And that's the birth of Pilisa Advocacy. And I didn't still pay attention. You see, Jean, I wanna tell the young people, sometimes it's here. You know that there's you special. You have a talent, you can sing, you can dance, you can think, you can figure things out. But we don't pay attention because we're not obedient. It's about obedience to what the word or what the dream is. And it already was born a little bit there where Granny was. I knew what I was at school. I was always, the young people were always drawn to me. I did first aid at school. I did a lot of things. I was active in a lot of organizations. But I didn't pay attention until that stopped. That stopped at Port St. John's. And I realized I was called to do something. And so my advice to young people is, if you have a dream, even if you're the only one believing in the dream, you must keep on pushing. Don't let your dream become a nightmare that you never ever attempt to try and achieve your dream. So for 10 years, this organization was in my dining room, in my family home. I didn't have a home. My house was a community center. People had no discipline. They came any time of the day and night looking for help. This is coming back from Port St. John's. This is starting this project in my garage. And for 10 years, I lived with the community and the community lived in my house. My children didn't have privacy. We didn't have holidays. We couldn't have Christmas. But this was what Pilisa Advocacy was. It was the Pilisa needed in the Betu. So Betu means ours. So it is our healing. Pilisa Advocacy Betu means heal our women. But what has become, it was the collective healing of a lot of things. Yes, it was gender-based violence. So my second incident was, I came home and this guy in front of my door were, when you kick a ball like this, and he kicked her face like that. And there were people standing around, men and women, watching. Nobody did anything. I came with my car around the corner and I clipped him with my mirror. And when I asked him, what are you doing? She said, it's none of your business. And I said, I'm making it my business today. And that was the birth of Pelisa Abafazi, because then it came together. On the Umsivubu, the women protecting me, and now I'm protecting this woman that says she doesn't need protection. Bleeding from the head, blood was gushing, took my jersey off, wrapped her head, and I started the project. I started the project in my dining room and in the garage. And I haven't looked back. I haven't looked back since hard times, and it's still hard. I'm working in a very hard space. I'm a black woman. I'm a Khoi woman. I'm a woman. And I'm speaking and working in a space where culture, tradition, and religion says you don't get involved in family business. And so I want to say to young people, if you have a dream, even if your dream is the cell phone, which will manifest one day in the big camera, and the small camera would be the big sound system. The humble small beginnings from your cell phone. You have to believe it. You have to visualize it. You have to put it on a board. This center, the people will tell you, Janine, was a block. And for 10 years, it was on the wall at my garage. And every day for 10 years, sometimes I smiled, sometimes I cried, sometimes I felt nuts, crazy in my head. Every day I would go to that block. I drew a block, but in that block I saw the center. Didn't know it was going to be containers. I saw a building with lots of things. And I would put my finger on that block every day and I would say, thank you for my building. Thank you for my building. That's all I said. For 10 years. You see that pink combi there at the back?
Yes, ma'am.
So I put the picture, I like the H1 combi. So somebody came past, I took a picture of the H1, printed, I put it on the wall. For 5 years, I said thank you for the combi. And my intention was clear. I don't want to owe money. I want it brand new. And it's going to serve the community. There's my H1. It's not the H1. It was brand new when it came. It only had 21 kilometers. And it's serving the community. This building too. For 10 years, the block on the wall, thank you for my building. Well, my children saying, what the hell? I'm like, it's okay, it's okay. This is my dream. I'm dreaming this for the community. Finger on the block. For 10 years, Jean. For 10 years, I said thank you for the building. People saw the block. I saw this. So what I want to motivate young people, you have to believe in your dream. I have traveled 25 times overseas. I've never used my own money. When I had lots of money, I got myself a passport. The day when I had the passport, I had it in my hand. I said, I will never give money out to travel anywhere. If I'm called to go somewhere, when I come back, I want to bring something for the community. My first trip, I traveled with 50 Rand to Germany. When I got to Germany, I didn't know A from B. I couldn't read anything. I didn't speak the language. And the people that needed to pick me up was late. Now you can imagine, I have a 50 Rand. I don't know what a tram is. I don't know what underground is. I don't know what the hoopaan is. But when I came back from that first trip, I came back with 3 suitcases. I came back with sweets. I came back with tea for the seniors. And I came back with money that time. 5,000 Rand was like 50,000 Rand for us now. And I came back with 5,000, which I shared with my team. I've never traveled using my own money. And I've negotiated. I'm very clear with how I speak to God. And people say sometimes I'm rude. If you believe in God or whatever you believe, you must be very specific. The block. Okay? I said to God, I don't want to own anybody anything. When we build the center for this community, everything will be new. And secondly, you called me to do this work, I will never be ashamed. So you'll never put me to shame. And there were times when miracles happen. You guys are singers, you guys are rappers, you guys are videographers. You must be very specific how you speak with your God about your dream. You must be very specific when it comes to your gift. Your gift must make room for you in places where your feet has never walked. Allow me to say this again. My gift have me in places where my name was mentioned, where I never even put my feet in. Your gift must make room for you in spaces where they're still going to mention your name. Rappers, videographers, the big producers, the sons of this African soil. And nobody must tell you, you cannot do it. When people say to me, you can't, I'm like, I'll show you. Didn't fight with anybody. In my heart, I didn't have the plan, I didn't know how. But my mind and my gift and my dream said, I'll show you.
Wow, young people, you heard from the wise woman herself. Very motivational, very inspirational as well. I hope as you follow on to this video, you will be motivated, you will be inspired through, the advice ma'am just gave us now. So to wrap up, I would like to ask ma'am 1 or 2 questions, but I'm going to do it at once.
Okay.
So the first question would then be like, ma'am mentioned about, being in school, leading, being part of a lot of organizations and people following ma'am around and things like that. So which basically means that ma'am had some sort of leadership potential in ma'am, which through people, to follow ma'am around and things like that. So the first question would then be like, what school was ma'am at? And then the second question would be, how long is Belisa Advocacy to now operating, and also what are like future events, and if ma'am could maybe also just like enlighten us a little quick on the 1 billion rising organizational project, because I'm also certain that ma'am is one of the members, or I don't know. I'd just like to know that before we end off, please.
Okay, so my first school was Christian David Moravian School here in Prince George Drive, and then I came to Lavana Primary for 1 year, and then my high school was Lavendale High School. So in relation to body shaming, I was the fat girl, I was the girl with no hair, and I wasn't very popular with the girls. In fact, in the beginning, when the girls wanted to bully me, I turned around one day and I said, I'll deal with you. That's it. But I became the most popular girl in the entire school. And all it took was just being authentic. It was just being authentic and seeking out those other young people like myself that was bullied because we were too fat, or we didn't have hair, or we didn't have blue eyes, or we didn't. That was it. And I had wonderful years at Lavendale High School, the best teachers. And then tragedy struck my life in my matric year, and I went from a C student in matric to failing matric. One incident threw me. I met my mother, and I remember I started off by saying I'm a grandmother's child, and I met my mother in my matric year, and it threw me so much because I had so many questions that I lost focus and I failed matric. Everybody was shocked, and I picked myself up and I went back to school, and so I redid my matric. But it was needed, and sometimes as young people, bad things happen to us, and we think it's the end of the world. It feels for a moment the end of the world, but you have to pick yourself up. Belisa Bufazi is 16 years old, and people would have given up by year 2 and year 3. You have an organization in a dining room, and for 10 years I was in that dining room. I am 5 years, I'm here 5 years in this big center, and there are times when I still pinch myself like, really girl, you are in this big center. Really. So again, we must also learn to be patient. I find it very interesting, young people, they have the gift, but they already see the first Bentley, they already see the credit card, they already see the flat, and then they have all this debt. And also managing, coming from a point of having nothing, having a big center, you have to learn to manage the big. Because you could cope with the small and the less, but now it's big. I have one more dream. One more. And I think I might have more, but I have one more dream.
For now, at least
For
one.
now. Well, it's a 7-year dream. And I should actually print a picture and just put it back up. So I want to drive a Ford 4x4 bakkie.
Okay.
With the square lights. That's what I want to drive. I'm not a fancy girl. I want a robust bakkie with a bull bar and a tow bar and big lights and big wheels. That's what I want to drive. 1 Billion Rising is a global movement that speaks out against all forms of violence against our bodies and Mother Earth and men and women, young boys and transgendered people. I'm a volunteer for the last 7 years and I serve on the council. And there's quite a lot of African countries also part of 1 Billion Rising. 15th of February, we do an autistic rising called Rise for Freedom, as you can see my t-shirt. And I want next year, I want to get young people involved. I want to spotlight and showcase the rappers, the singers, the poets, the dancers. And we come together in a 2-hour event and we rise for freedom. We need to rise for Congo, here at Police Abufazi. We need to rise for Mozambique. Look what is happening in Mozambique. We need to rise for reproductive health rights in the US. So I want to bring young people together. And what sometimes I find it fascinating, people say, okay, you want me to come perform, how much are you going to pay me? I'm saying, what if I spotlight you? Have you ever thought that you give something free for the community? It's just not for the community, it's for God. And that might just open your step in the space where somebody would not just mention your name, but spot your talent or put it on social media. And there's a lot of young people that I also believe strongly that your hands should be blessed, that giveth. But that hands, the blessing of that hands is God. Amen. So I'm putting a invitation out for rappers, for singers to come. And our artistic rising is Rise for Freedom. Even with everything that's so hard in South Africa, we are free to a point. So I would like to invite you guys to come. I will stay in contact. And we want the videographer to come. We can get him to film that day for us.
Anytime.
We need to see if we can get somebody that can maybe donate equipment to make it nice.
They are also sound guys, they work with sound, so anything.
Yes, we need DJ, we need sound, we need a lot, but we'll stay in touch.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am, for having me. So this is Teenz Media TV. Please do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also please don't forget to follow Pilisa Abafasi Betu Essay on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And yeah, the email address is also over here. And once again, thank you so much, Ms. Lucinda Evans. Hopefully we see each other again and we will definitely be part of the event. God bless you. And yeah, thank you so much.
And Merry Christmas to all of you
Merry
as well.
Christmas to everyone else. And also Ms. Lucinda, I think she's having a Christmas day where they are giving food
tomorrow
to people, which is happening tomorrow. So maybe if you are outside there, you got anything to donate, please feel free to come to Pilisa Abafasi Betu, or please take Ms. Lucinda's email address. You can also personally contact me. I can, refer you to her, and then you can donate anything that you've got. So yeah, thank you so much and goodbye. Thank you once again.
Bye, John. Thank you.
See you around.
Thank you, guys.
And also, lastly, shout out to Springfield. Thank you so much, guys, for being behind the camera, and I'll also not forget to mention MJ Pro Studio. Thank you. See you.